Kia ora katoa, kia ora Aotearoa, kia ora Tash Bettridge. Thank you so much for being on our show. And for those that you have seen that haven't seen any of these, this is the 8th interview in the series for Te Wiki Aotearoa Māori, and that is Māori Language Week, if you don't understand what that saying in reo is. And the purpose of what we're here to do is to hear personal stories about people's personal journey with te reo as a way of making our history apparent. And part of that that I shared in my post that I'm not too proud of, but as part of the past, is the fact that the government had a language eradication program, the 1867 Native Schools Act, which was around starting with English teachers in Māori schools, hence the word Native Schools Act. And the aim was to start, so they actually spoke both te reo and English, as the history I've read, because they started speaking Māori but taught the Māori kids English. And then when they could speak English, they would beat them if they spoke Māori. And the whole point was, and people adopted it, which was to be successful in life, you had to speak English, don't worry about Māori. And that's where, and here's our first comment from the viewer, so I'll pop that up. Yes, Tash. So the end of that little story is that that's how generations of Māori don't speak Māori, and answers the question that I get asked a lot: why should we speak Māori when Māori don't speak te reo Māori? Well, it's not actually by choice. It's by history's actions. And that's why we have Te Wiki Aotearoa Māori. I'm just coming to an end, and we'll get Tash to introduce herself. But that's why we have this, is to revitalize the language and bring it back. And man, is it accelerating, and is it a good time to speak te reo? So with that, I would like to invite Tash to introduce herself, and then we'll get into our usual 3 questions, which everyone has answered so far. So Tash, over to you, please.
Tēnā koe, Ryan. So, kia ora koutou, katoa, ko tawhatunui te maunga, ko tauranga te awa, ko pararaki te tangata. Ko maru o Hinemakahu te marae, ko te whānau a pararaki te hapu, ko te whānau a apanui te iwi. Ko taurera mai tāwhiri te waka, ko matātua te rohi, ko Lou toku mama, ko Kev toku papa, ko Tash toku ingoa. He uru anō. Aho no Ngāpui, no Ngāti Pākehā, no Ngāti Ahia Hoki. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. So kia ora, Ryan. Tēnā koe for having me on the show. Sorry, my internet's a little bit bad at the moment. I'm at the whare of my mama and papa's house, so they're like kind of in the bush area, so the Wi-Fi is not the best, so I apologize, everyone. Aroha mai. I'll do my best. If I cut out or I'm freezing too much afterwards, feel free to reach out to me if you have any pātai. So yeah, thank you for having me on the show. I've been meaning to connect with you for a while now, Ryan, and it's much appreciated that you have me here.
My pleasure. Yes, absolutely my pleasure. And your internet's doing pretty well considering what it was just before. So we'll just roll with it. As Hemi Rolliston said, there's a bit of fluidity involved in this whole discussion. So we'll transfer that concept of fluidity from tikanga protocol, from the marae and we're talking about it on the marae, and within a pōwhiri, how sometimes what was meant to be said by who it was meant to be said completely changes in the moment. So we'll do the same with our internet. If we have a bit of fluidity, we'll just roll with it. So thank you so much, and beautiful introduction. And I am able to pick up more and more of what is being said as my te reo increases. And with all the languages I've learned, hearing and understanding comes before speaking. It just seems to be the way. So the more I try to speak, the more I actually understand and learn from the engagement. So let's hear about your personal journey. And I always preface this for everyone that there's all ends of the spectrum, or both ends of the spectrum, from someone who may have grown up and speaks it fluently to someone who's actually just starting to learn. So we've got a little bit of a taste from your introduction, but that may just be like me, the te reo that you may speak. So over to you to share with us your story, please.
Hi. So, yeah, kia ora, I'm Tash. So, Tash Bettridge is my name. And I just do a breakdown of my pepeha because that is kind of the pepeha you learn when you're doing te reo tahi or te reo rua is through the academic institutes. So I'm still on that journey, you see. And out of my papa, my mama and papa don't speak te reo Māori. And that came down from my nans. So my nans, both, I'm actually Māori on both sides, but aesthetically I'm super Pākehā looking. But I grew up pretty Māori, like in the context that we love our boila, love my doughboys, love my fried bread, love my hangi. I just did a lot of things very Māori. Always go down to like the marae or up the marae. Usually when it's a tangi, unfortunately, but yeah, just it's kind of interesting journey that I'm going through because I started to learn more about my own culture by living overseas, you see. So I lived a couple years in Mexico and I could speak Spanish. And I was helping out in indigenous communities. In Mexico, I was teaching English and Spanish. And I was just enjoying how indigenous people in Mexico were so connected to their culture, still keeping the customs and still following their traditions. So when I came back to Aotearoa, I was like, wow, I don't really know too much about my own kind of culture, my own language. And I think about the journey I'm going through to reclaim that identity of of my nan and my mom and dad going through that journey of like learning about the culture because there's a thing, right? If you take away a person's language, it's kind of take away their culture at the same time. So it's like I'm going through this journey of te reo and learning and identifying more about who I am as a person and the journey that I'm going through is like a reflection of the stuff that my nan went through because yeah, when I think about like you brought up the Native Schools Act and I kind of just like cringed a bit because I was just reflecting on stories from my nan when she was alive. Like God bless her soul, she's no longer alive. She's passed away for like more than 10 years. Uh, so it's still quite hard for me because I don't have any nans left or kōros left. They all passed away. So it's just my mum and my papa and their siblings, which aren't fluent in te reo either.
Yeah. So you think you might have, oh no, you're not frozen. So you,
But
tell us more about your nan.
thinking about the days, you know, up pretty much like terrible whippings, and just hearing the journey, like when I reflect on my own journey of learning te reo at the wā. Oh, sorry.
No, it's all right.
Oh,
You
you
carry
cut
on.
out a bit. Oh, I cut out a bit.
Yeah, there's a
So
little bit
when
of
I'm
a frozen. And I asked
going
you
through
to.
that journey, I'm reflecting. Yeah, sorry, I apologize. So, but when I'm going through my own journey of like reclaiming the language and a bit of my culture, I'm constantly thinking about my nan and my nan on both sides. So both my nans marry Pākehā, Māori on both sides, but their children, my aunties, uncles, my parents, didn't grow up and learning the language. So they are on their own journeys as well. And it is a journey that we're all taking as a whānau to understand more about our culture. But right now, I'm still already like level tahi o rua. So it's one of those ongoing lifelong journeys to understand the reo and really absorb it.
So do you still go down to the marae? are you living in Auckland? Is that where your marae is, or is this when you were a kid?
So that was like when I was a kid, because I did spend quite a bit of my childhood growing up with my mum's mum. So my mum, she whakapapa to Te Whānau Nui. So I have a stronger connection to Te Whānau Nui, but my father is Ngāpuhi. So I have been to the marae up north a few times, mainly for 21st or first birthdays, but the bigger connection is down in the East Coast. Yeah.
So East Coast, as in the place you said, but I'm from the Dunedin and not super familiar with the North Island places, but
Oh, so sorry.
That's all right.
No,
but near as a reference, near Gisborne or near.
So yeah, I apologize, and that's my assumption
Okay.
because I'm so used to talking with other Māori when we talk about the East Coast. We're thinking about anything from like Te Kaha all the way down to like Gisborne, right? So yeah, Te Whānau Nui is from, I think it's like from Te Kaha or even before that, and then goes all the way down, and then it connects to Ngāti Porou. So my nan grew up in the Waiho Bay area. So if you know the movie Boy, that's pretty much that's the kind of indicator, because that's like that's when the movie was filmed, because then that's the town center. So yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, I have done a tiki tour of the North Island with my wonderful wahine, and we went right through like Taloga Bay, and there's a famous story where, me, I had my phone with a camera in one hand and an actual camera in the other hand, and there's a beach with these volcanic pebbles, not quite the size of a golf ball, but they're so light. And I walked all the way out, and the next thing, these waves came smashing in and just took all the pebbles away. So I was like neck deep in water, getting washed out to sea, holding these two cameras up. And my wife was laughing because she knows I can't swim, and I wouldn't let the cameras go. But there's the stretch of beach on the way from is it Gisborne, Napier, Gisborne, and then Taloga Bay is in there, and you can either go up to Ruatoria or come round to Whakatane. Yeah, so there's a beach there.
You know the coast then.
Well, kind of, but when you say that place name, I don't know where that is within that East Coast, but I got you on East Coast. Okay, so now how often would you get to your marae? Is that kind of more like school holidays and things like that when you take the kids? Or
well, I haven't had a good waka for a while, not a very good car, so I haven't been for a while. But this holidays I'm going down because I need to go visit my nan, because she's buried down there. So I need to go clean up the grave.
Yeah. And in your learning of reo, have you done classes, or you learn with the whānau? How are you sort of approaching that?
So I'll give you a bit of background, because when I came back to Aotearoa back in 2015, I was going into teaching, and I studied a bit of biculturalism at Te Wānanga. So that's about level 5, level 6. So I did a biculturalism paper, and then I did level 1 and 2. But I'm always like repeating level 1 and 2 or 3, because I don't feel like I'm ready for the next step. So I have done the study through like Te Wānanga and through work. So last year we did a Kōrero course, a part of Microsoft, and it was such an amazing course that we did, because a lot of our Microsofties signed up to learn Kōrero, and I thought that was fantastic. So there was a class of us. There was only about like a dozen of us that graduated, because it is a big journey and it's a big commitment. But just knowing that people actually made that journey at Microsoft to learn level 1 and 2 te reo, that was actually quite awesome, because we were all learning together with the senior leaders, with Vanessa at the beginning. So just having the support of actually going for the course with my colleagues was fantastic. And saying that, I just want to tautoko one of my amazing Pākehā colleagues from South Africa. His name is Andre de Beer. So in the background, you can see I've got this made like background for Teams or Zoom. So he did this, and he got the original, te reo for Te Wiki logo, and he also put some vocabulary. Oh, if I point that way, does it show the right way? But you can see like okay, that way. So you can see he's got like some greetings, like greetings to you, like tēnā koe, greetings to you for 2 or more people. So he did this for Te Wiki to celebrate, and he's the only one from our class at Microsoft that actually loved the language so much. I know we all love the language, but he just wanted to be an expert in like te reo, and he's gone to a diploma level, and that's something that I aspire to continue the journey, because our Pākehā colleagues like really loving te reo, and he's only been in New Zealand or Aotearoa for about 2 or 3 years, I think. If he's listening, like, correct me. But he's just really like part of the whānau. He's really just learning the reo, and just like even correcting me all the time. And I'm like, okay, I respect that. I don't have my, it's all good. Like, thank you for taking this journey. And so
that's amazing.
He's a good person to practice with.
Oh, good. Well, I'll be coming down to visit. So it's quite interesting how when people come from come to a new country, they can sometimes really get into something. And we're gonna, this is going to open up a much bigger discussion than the way I'm going to frame it. But they don't have the same hang-ups that people from that country have. In this case, we're talking about te reo. It could be about many other things, right? But I remember when I went overseas and did my OE, you went to Mexico, he's come here to New Zealand, maybe a bit more permanent, staying 3 years. But you just, I don't know, it's sort of like wherever you go, part of that journey of an OE or moving is that it just frees up whatever was holding you back. Because I think it might be that classic saying, you are your environment, you are the 5 people you hang out with the most. So if you're always around this situation, that's how you live and breathe and feel. So then you remove yourself from it, go somewhere else. Hence, someone from another country gets really into the te reo and has gone to a diploma level ahead of others. So congratulations to him. And explain.
Inspiration, as well as other colleagues like Dan Walker and Venus. So tēnā koe Andre de Beer. Yeah, awesome. So that's someone I like to practice when he comes into the office, because he loves it. He has so much joy with te reo, and he just continues to thrive more. And I like to see that with our Pākehā colleagues, as well as some of our younger Māori who are on their own journeys. They have that kind of just energy and love for the reo, because it's such a beautiful language, and it's a language with emotion. And when you think about how it's worded, it's just, because how we say words in English, right? It's like similar to Spanish, that the words have like a different meaning. It's like kai moana, right? You're looking at the food of the ocean, and it's just, there's like always a meaning that with te reo could be different words that could have also different definitions, but not meaning different words, right? It's just how you say it in the context. So I just use kai moana for one instance. It's not the best example, but I'm just saying
I
that
know
there's a
what you
lot of
mean.
emotion in the food. Not in the, I love food, but an emotion in the word.
We all love
Oh,
food.
goodness.
That's all I care about too.
Oh, it's
Um,
coming up to dinner time. I'm like ready for kai soon.
having the fuzzies, getting ready for some kai.
Mm,
But yeah, language of emotion, right? So different languages around the world are given some sort of title, and this is the first time I've actually heard anyone give a title to Māori language as a language of emotion. So you think about Italian as a language of flair, or maybe it's design. French and Italian get mixed up. Oh, one is the language of love, I think. French is
mhm,
the language of love, and Italian the language of flair, et cetera, right? But coming back to the language of emotion, if you think of the haka, right,
mhm,
and we see the most, I don't mean it in a negative way, but extreme emotion during a haka, and it's one of the things. Just a little side subject is maybe as we look to answer our mental health problems as a
mhm,
culture of New Zealand, from tall poppy to suppressing our emotions,
mhm,
perhaps learning te reo is a way to unleash our emotions and improve our mental health. There's just a little
mhm.
thought for everyone to think about out there. But coming back to your comment, language of emotion, it is. It is. I like it. So, just thinking about our other questions. So the second question is around the recent years of Te Wiki Aotearoa Māori, and what I feel has been a real acceleration. Obviously, still a long way to go, and we've had various answers to this. But would you agree that things have accelerated positively in the last couple of years? And what are some of the things that you personally have observed, enjoyed, being a part of, that you'd like to share on that note?
Tēnā koe, Ryan. So thank you for actually saying that question because I came from different industries and I've lived in different countries, right? So growing up, I remember the only kind of kapahaka song. Like I was taught at Ponsonby. I went to Ponsonby Primary, Ponsonby Intermediate was like, I think two, you know the one, two, tēnā mai nai we. So
Yes.
we already did that one with yeah, with the Susie Kato in the background. I was like, oh, that's the only kind of influence of te reo growing up. And I remember because I'm possibly primary, there wasn't that many Māori or Pacifica, it was kind of dominated Pākehā school. And growing up in that kind of environment, I was actually like, I would say people bullied a lot of my whānau and stuff when they come and pick me up. It was quite challenging. So I didn't feel like they taught language in the primary school then, and kind of lost that connection of being Māori in primary and intermediate school. And it wasn't until I think growing up, because I'm in my 30s, and I came back in 2015. And when I came back to Aotearoa in 2015 and being in education already had the biculturalism in there.
Yeah.
So there was already some biculturalism. There was like te reo was part of the core curriculum. And I think in the last 2 years it has accelerated in some areas, like companies, especially in corporate environments, are embracing it more
Yeah.
and embracing it positively, but at the same time, they've got work that they need to work on because it's there's a difference with like having te reo used for like marketing purposes, right? But without any like I would say cultural competency around why you're using te reo. It's it kind of goes to get some tikana processes because you're thinking about corporations who want to embrace te reo but they need to also go for the journey themselves, right? So I have seen it accelerated in corporate environments. I think it's a positive sign, but there is also a lot of learnings to happen. When I have a look at the media on the news and stuff like that, on mainstream news, it is used a lot more, as well as like signage and that on the streets. So I love that. I think that's a beautiful thing to share the reo with everyone. We all need to take this journey, like myself, reclaiming my own identity and my own culture and language. So yeah, I think going back to your question, in the last 2 years, there has been some acceleration. We're still on a long journey, and it depends on which area you're looking at, because education has had those key areas of ako learning for a while, but it's like in the corporate area, it's still quite a new area. Yeah, because
Yes,
public
I
sector
think
is pretty good.
yes. I think the word journey is a good one. It's potentially overused, one of those languages of one of those cliches of business, or even life, where it's overused to the point that it loses its meaning. But to attach meaning specific to this kaupapa, I think that yes, there'll be those initial things where it's used for marketing. It's just said because people learn their pepeha, and I think the good thing is that there's this excitement and true positive energy behind it, but it gets to the point where we're just, and I'm one of them, is that we're just repeating the words and sounds, and that's all we do, and we know our pepeha, and that's it. So in terms of the journey, the next step is to obviously add to that, so that we're starting to learn how to speak the language, not just recite something in the language, and then learn the tikanga, the process and etiquette that's behind it. And look, there's some fabulous courses out there now. There's one that's being promoted by Education Perfect, who is the organisation that provides the online learning for schools. They've now opened it up, and there's a competition this year. I didn't even realize it's been running the previous couple of years, but it's again, in terms of acceleration, it's actually been on the news a couple of times, which is awesome. And one of our guests, Neil Walker, did quite a extensive interview on whakaata Māori, which is the new name for Māori television. But yeah, it covers everything. So like we're talking about, it covers the basic language, basic tikanga protocol, what's involved in everything through pōwhiri, but then also Te o Waitangi. So what is the Treaty of Waitangi? What is the significance of it? What are the key parts of it? And it's all gamified. So you'll see some posts. I'll connect you to them so that you can have a wee look. But it seems to be, I think, quite a well packaged, step you through from beginning on that journey. So yeah, I encourage everyone, whether it be that one or another one, or through your whānau, however your journey goes, but just keep at it regularly. And my confession is that the last 2 years over COVID and running events, a lot of things, including my te reo lessons, have taken a back seat, unfortunately. But that's also partly why I'm doing what I'm doing here this year, is to reaffirm my commitment to learning te reo and saying it publicly, so everyone will be watching. Can't not fulfill on my accountability there. But this is about you and your thoughts. So coming back to you, now looking towards the future, and this is while the government have put out they want 1 million speakers by 2030. This is more about your personal view, your personal approach. What do you think needs to happen, could happen, like to happen, love to happen, to continue the development of te reo Māori within Aotearoa?
Oh, that's a good question, Dave. So I think the goal could be achievable, but we all have to be on the same waka, right? I know we all have different views and perspectives on te reo, and I like to use the word journey because at the end of the day, when you learn our language, you learn Aotearoa, you're actually learning more about who you are as an individual. And it's one of those topics that a lot of people don't actually want to talk about, but at the same time, it is a journey to you understanding your family too, your own whakapapa, your ancestors, right? And I think that's a beautiful thing to share that. And when you're talking about how it becomes like reciting, but you're trying to
Mm.
build a connection with the people you're talking to in the room, right? You want to see if they're from the same
Oh, yeah.
ancestry line, the same name, the same waka that you all came from, or your parents came from, your grandparents came from,
Mm.
and then share that kind of connection and journey, and you could be distant relatives. So having 1 million speakers of a population of 5 point something million, I think it's achievable. But we have to have that kind of growth mindset. You know, we always talk about growth mindset and understanding other cultures and being sensitive to other cultures because there is a culture here in Aotearoa and it's a beautiful culture. And it's a beautiful culture that we're very loving to share our culture with other people who want to, come on board our waka and actually, have a chat with us and understand our our individual selves and where we come from and what makes us like Māori, right? So, so thinking about the future and where I want to see the language to go, like, and to grow and
Mhm.
develop, I would, I love it to, like, right now, my own tamariki, like, speak Māori singing songs, waiata, and that's a beautiful thing because when I was little, apart from going to Tangi and I love the waiata and the tangian, but that's the only time I would actually like learn our waiata. So just seeing the changes through my tamariki and just like seeing them like really embrace te reo Māori, I think 1 million is definitely achievable. We all have to go through it together and just have an open mind and understanding because there's so much division in this world, right? It's good to be open and just to have that kind of, we always try to talk about diversity inclusion and we want to be more diverse in not just workplaces, schools, etc. But if we can't get biculturalism right, we can't really get diversity right. So it's important to all of us in Aotearoa try and learn some phrases. You don't have to be perfect. You might make some mistakes, but at the end of the day, we're all learning together, and we can all. I'm gonna say it. Go through the waka, the journey, and help achieve that goal of 1 million te reo speakers. But we
Well,
all
that's
have to have an
absolutely right.
open mind. Yeah.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And I think it's around 20% of our population, and it may be less than 20% by the time we get to 2030, at the rate we're
Mhm.
growing. But I think you're absolutely right. A growth mindset, and a willingness to give it a go. So one of my favourite
Mm.
sayings in te reo is "Hoe te waka," which literally translates to paddle the waka, but
Mhm.
the translation is "go for it." And Wairangi Jones, I don't even know Wairangi, see him posting around tikanga and te reo
Mhm.
quite a lot, not just in Te Wiki o Te Reo Māori, but at any time. So he was the person who taught me that. And yeah, so I know lots of words which I add in and lots of phrases, and I was just starting to get to learn the grammar and being able to work out how to put a sentence together. So instead of saying there's a lot of araha in the air for te reo now, to actually say the whole sentence and not just insert words into English. Yeah, look, so we're getting the comments up again. So there's one from Unique, which is, yeah, definitely achievable. Absolutely. That's why we're here. That's why we're doing this. So we're just coming up on time, and you've got the whānau to go and see, mama and papa, and got the kids. So we won't hold you up too much more. What I'll do, though, Tash, is give you an opportunity to think about your closing remarks, and I'll just do a quick summary of what you've shared. So it looks like someone's already in the room saying, "Get off there! Come on, leave the work alone." So we'll get you back to the whānau as quickly as possible. But so we've had Tash Bettridge on, who's our 8th interviewee for this kaupapa, which is to share through personal stories everyone's journey with te reo Māori, to help tell the story of why te reo is in the state of revitalization rather than just full use. And some interesting facts that Tash was able to share around growing up and learning most of her te reo when attending formal occasions on the marae, sadly, usually tangihanga, funeral. And in her journeys was when she was teaching English in Mexico to Mexican people that she saw how much identity they gained from their language, which invigorated her when she came back. And she has been through some classes and still considers herself a learner in the early stages. I'm paraphrasing that for context. And we talked about the different things that people are doing, including her backdrop, which came from her colleague, I think it's Adrian De Beers or Oliver De Beers, one of her colleagues, and how the likes of Microsoft even put on level 1 and level 2 basic te reo classes for the whole team, with a pretty good uptake and adoption. And now just finishing, as you probably heard if you were with us then, around how do we continue to grow this, what's needed. And a very, very, very poignant point was that we all need to be on the same walker, and that's going to take some growth mindset, because there are some people who are resistant, which is okay. But really, if we are to all adopt the te reo, then we all need to get a growth mindset. And maybe some people need to let go of the past, as in the people that are resisting learning te reo, and pick it up like they pick up other languages, pick it up like they love the haka when the All Blacks win with the haka at the beginning. So, I always say, if you like the haka, then you should learn the language. But with that, we'll give you opportunity for closing remarks before you head off for your kai with the whānau. Over to you, Tash.
Oh, tēnā koe, Ryan. So it keeps dropping out. So
Well,
I heard some parts of it, but I'm gonna leave everyone with one of my favorite whakatauki. It's Tukutoa he toa rangatira. So the bravery is inherited from the chief who were my forebears. So I'm thinking about my ancestors and that. So bravery for all of us, where we're going through this beautiful, I'm going to say it, journey of learning te reo, because it's such a beautiful thing to connect with, te reo and Aotearoa and our people, because I think, like I keep saying before, we embrace other parts of the culture, and we have integrated it. We have integrated parts of te reo or tikana Māori in some of our lifestyle as it is, and customs. So it's such a beautiful journey if we can all go through it, learn the place names correctly, little by little, people's names, little phrases, and be brave, because it is a beautiful language and it's a beautiful culture to be shared. And just reach out if you have any questions and you want to take the journey and you want to know more about my journey, because it's only just a short session today, and I have so much to talk about, but my network is so bad. So I apologize, everyone.
That's all right. So we will do this again in the future because I like to keep doing this regularly, not just during Te Wiki Aotearoa Māori. And I have been a little bit up and down in doing so, finding the right regularity, the right frequency, people's availability, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, and I would also encourage other people to also do this. So, maybe it's something that you might do, or the Microsoft crew might be able to do your Microsoft version with partners, etc. I don't know. But the more in general, whichever specific delivery, the better, I think. So I just want to say tēnā rawa atu koe, which is, I think, the best rendition of thank you very much that I've said across all 8, because I just relaxed and rolled it out. Didn't overthink it before I got started. It's always a little bit different when you're on sort of live and it's been recorded and just chillaxing and talking with mates. But thank you very much, Tash, for sharing your story. And it's definitely a very cool one. And I love the fact that your experience in Mexico was invigorating and drove you to find your language and your identity. It's a really beautiful thing. And with that, we'll let you hand over to you to say ka kite anō to everybody, and we'll head off for some kai.
All right. So ka kite, everyone. So thank you for having me on the show, Ryan and the team. So have a good evening. Oh, am I?